Game of Thrones Season 8's Backlash is ridiculous. ScreenRant. Season 8 has become one of the most controversial TV events ever, but as the finale looms, it's fair to say that the backlash is getting a bit too much. HBO's the complaints really began after episode 3, Now, to the detractors' credit, there are some clear AAT just 6 episodes long, even with the final 4 extended closer to an hour and a half, it's far too short to cover all the story that was left, and the writer's solution has been to have single episodes deal with seasons worth of plot. This, in turn, however, this is hardly a new phenomenon. Game of Thrones has, in that framing, Game of Thrones Season 8 is delivering what has long been promised. While Fat Salad, starting as round disappointment, the Game of Thrones backlash grew to become more vitriolic. Memes calling out the petition alone is an egregious step on the part of Game of Thrones fandom, even if signed as a joke. A woeful misunderstanding. What's more revealing, though, ISAF Extreme Reactions is the Star Wars side of things due to how it recalls the last time geek culture became the proverbial mad fans. Ryan Johnson's, what's most interesting in those cases, though, is how both are informed heavily by skewed and overly reinforced perspective. One thing that is Game of Thrones fandom is even more fractured. How at the audience that makes for great fan discussions, but also means that so much of what's being speculated on isn't relevant to the tale at hand. Is as apt to the show. Again, that's disappointing. Game of Thrones, by nature of the medium, has watered down a lot of George Right Reverend Martin Sassong. Game of Thrones concludes this Sunday at 9 p.m. on HBO.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park,